fuck going on, Willis?
GCI, and that shit go phone. Rather die than my bitch to the tone.
Hello everyone and welcome to this amazing episode of Education Street, brought to you by the fantabulous folks from the follow-through. If you notice that our intro is lacking its usual kind of just hip, pizzazz, it's because unfortunately our main editor has been having to deal with some issues back home, and he's been quite busy. And let's all send him a lot of love and a lot of good energy and good thoughts that everything gets resolved soon. But in the meantime, please tell your friends about us. Tell your mother, your grandmother, your grandfather, everyone to check in. We just wanted to say that if you're new to Education Street and the follow-through, we try to be like Switzerland. We're trying to be very academic here, where we present things to you the way Socrates would have done, and it's up to you to really make your mind think, which I know is a very kind of novel idea in America right now, because it seems we just do not think at all, and we just react. Like, I think organisms do a much better job of thinking than we do. We just react before we even think. We're like an asteroid floating through space. But I'd probably say we're of lesser intelligence than that, because at least that has a trajectory it's going on. So it is December 1st, and before we dive any further, please tell your friends once again to check us out, subscribe to us depending on where you're listening to us, whether it's YouTube, Spotify, Apple. Give us thumbs up, give us likes, and hopefully you enjoy a more humane and more balanced approach to perspectives and things on life. So it is December 1st. It is approximately 1 month after the U.S. presidential election had occurred. And kind of from popular demand, we're kind of doing a part 2 to our initial episode that we had up maybe a couple weeks ago. And we're going to dive into some things. And, the first thing we want to say is, we're a little disappointed that the president really kind of instigated a lot of unnecessary instability post-election. The White House is really one of the most prestigious positions of power that anyone can have. And regardless of how you feel if you lost, you can kind of do it with some honor. Be like the samurai. When the samurai would lose, they would just commit harakiri, which is they would get a sword and slice their entrails open, and then their friend or their enemy, who's also their friend, is very interesting samurai culture, would chop off their head as a way of honor, to make sure they wouldn't suffer. So sometimes you can lose with some grace, with some pomp and circumstance. But we're going to dive into some things. So here's some questions that some people have asked. Some people have asked, can you please re-explain why the numbers seemed as if they're jumping sharply overnight or over the day, favoring, for example, Biden, and why it seemed as if all of a sudden 200,000 ballots got counted all at once. So to go into this, we kind of explained this in the first part of this, part 1 of this episode. Now that we're on part 2, it's not that these numbers jumped overnight. They gave the perception that they jumped overnight if you weren't checking the tally like every hour. So if you checked it November 4th, and then all of a sudden you checked it end of the night November 5th, there were huge jumps in numbers. And then if you checked it November 6th, right, and the last time you checked it was November 4th, it would spike even more, right? Now, I can't speak on how these ballots are counted, but they're usually done in big batches. So let's just say they're done at 10,000 at a time, right? So if you're counting 10,000 ballots at a time and all of a sudden it's 200,000 ballots, the number's going to shoot up really quick, okay? Part of the reason why, once again, that these mail-in ballots favored Biden are primarily because of the fact that most of the mail-in ballots were from black and poorer communities who traditionally have not really voted, because whether they did not have access to voting or voting was too difficult, inconvenient, and most of them had never known that they could mail in their ballots, which is odd to me. I mean, I know young people in their 20s and 30s and 40s who've never known they can mail in their ballot, like, if they're at home. They always thought you could only do it if you're out of town, for example, but they never knew that. So you had a lot of poorer communities, regardless of color, vote with their mail-in by ballot. And once again, I think strategically this is where Donald Trump shot himself in the foot, because he told his base to go vote in person. So when you do the game theory, when you analyze past elections and you have a tight race, and you could use some really fancy algorithms even today, which was done before this election, everyone predicted that this might be one of the scenarios where on election day, Trump would look as if he was winning, but then as more mail-in ballots began to be counted, Biden would take the lead, hypothetically, because that's what they were assuming. Now, I'm going to go back to what I said in the first episode. The thing is Trump was never in the lead. So that's the thing that people keep forgetting, is he was consistently behind in both the electoral counts and the popular vote. And once those contested states popped up, such as Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wyoming, I mean, he lost them all, you know. And even up to that point, just as a little fresh reminder, all Biden needed to win was Nevada, and Trump needed to win 4 states. So it was an uphill battle for him. So to re-clarify, the reason why those ballots seemed as if, you know, the count was surging was because you weren't checking the counts systematically. Like, you were waiting a day or maybe or half a day or 2 days. And also the ballots were being counted in big batches. So whether it was 10,000 or 200,000 at a time, they were counted in big batches. And most of those mail-in ballots in a lot of these areas were from poor communities who were voting Democrat. So they were voting for Biden. So that's why the numbers were heavily favoring Biden. There's no evidence of deceased people voting. The BBC did an amazing, actually, investigative job on this. They have their data out. They have their research out. It's actually dumbed down for a lot of us into Cliff Notes. Deceased people can't vote. I know the issue is brought up by the president a lot of times, but the BBC actually really dived into this. And what they found was, because unfortunately Americans have a lot of common, simple names, like a lot of John Smiths out there, it makes it seem as if a John Smith who's dead is voting, but they're not. Or what's happened is you have John Smith, and then they named their child John Smith. So John Smith Sr. is dead. John Smith, the son, is alive and is voting. And so they think, so when people dive into this, they initially think the dead father is voting, but that's not the case. It's the son who's voting. And actually this popped up a lot in the country. Maybe Americans should take on some really cool, like, Iranian names, like Japanese names, so that they have more than one syllable in their bloody name. Maybe take on some great Native American names. Maybe add a little bit of a, like a little bit of a click into your name with an exclamation point, just so that there's less confusion out there in the future. I don't know, just some train of thought. Let's see. Ballots with only one name checked and nothing else. I personally, as a political science major, that seems like impossible. It's bordering on the conspiracy stuff that you're seeing on Instagram and the internet. Ballots need to have 2 names. It's that simple. The odds of a ballot having 1 name printed is close to nothing. It would never happen. And let's just say hypothetically, if it did, and you were to mail in a ballot with 1 name, if the person at the post office didn't catch it, the voting center would. It would make no sense. You can't mail a ballot with 1 name because you need the full name. You need your first name and your last name, so that they can check the registry. Otherwise, it automatically gets discarded. There's been some questions about, how do you feel about the distrust for the United States Postal Service and how they're endorsing a specific candidate when they should probably remain neutral. I personally have not been able to find anything where the Postmaster General, I believe that's what they are called, was endorsing a specific candidate. But if they were, let's go back a few months when the USPS Postmaster General approached the President of the United States and his staff and said, during this lockdown, we have the capability of sending out a lot of masks to every citizen in the United States, to every household, and to at least help you guys contain this virus. And look, we're not going to go into a mask debate. We're just saying what they wanted to do to help the country out, and the president rejected it. He kept threatening to withhold their funding. So if they didn't like the guy, you could see why, right? The last few months has not been very good between the two. The relationship between the two has been like that of a bitter couple looking to get divorced. So there's a lot of vehemence there. But the USPS couldn't do anything for the votes, for the mail-in ballots. They just couldn't, because you're talking about they would have to literally open up 70 million ballots. Let's just say 50 million ballots. Let's just say 1 million ballots, right? It would be more than 1 million. But they'd have to open up millions of ballots and somehow commit some type of fraud, which would never happen, because then those ballots are gone and they can't reseal them. Like, once those things are open, they're tampered with, they are automatically illegitimate. So I think it's just one of those conspiracy theories, much like about the ballots with not one name. I saw it floating a lot in a lot of unusual arenas of Instagram and YouTube, unfortunately. So it's not legit. Another thing to consider was, unfortunately, the president had said that in Michigan, there are areas where the voter turnout was 100% higher, and he was claiming overvote. Unfortunately, this is all conspiracy theory. It's trying to create division among us in the United States. The sad thing is that the areas that the president was talking about were not in Michigan. They were in another state known as Minnesota. And, for example, when you look at Benville Township, I believe that's what it's called, the voter turnout was showing 350%. But when you look up the electoral records, they had a voter turnout of where 63 people voted out of the total 71 registered. And if you do the math there, it's 89%. And all the other places that were of mention, which were all in the state of Minnesota, not Michigan, were all below 100%. In Detroit, for example, the president had tweeted that there are far more votes than people. Once again, this was false. When you look at the election results for Detroit, and I'm reading this off the BBC because they did a wonderful job with this, it showed that the voter turnout in the city was less than 50%. And this was printed on, we have it from actually November 31st right here. Sorry, let's just double check the date. Sorry, November 23rd. I apologize. This was about a week ago that the BBC put this out. So, in all fairness, unfortunately, the president lost, and I know it's very hard for some people. But look, I think I'm going to say a statement, and a lot of people are going to go ape shit, but I'm going to say this. President Trump was the greatest president in the United States. And before you want to guillotine me or praise me, remember, we're Education Street. And what I mean by that is the president of the United States, President Trump, was the greatest president ever, because for the first time in a very long time, people in this country actually cared about voting, and they cared about democracy. Both candidates, Biden and President Trump, received, I believe, the highest amount of votes ever. And that's what's amazing, and that's what makes him the best. Despite how polarized the country was, without him, people wouldn't have cared about voting. They wouldn't have cared about about coming out there and making a difference. I mean, look, the latest tally showed that Biden received 80,941,306 votes, okay? Which was 51.3% of the vote. Trump received 74,077,537 votes, which is 47%. This was a very tight race. I mean, these numbers are astronomically amazing. And, you know, I think the hard thing is that there's a lot of conspiracy theories on the internet and people just making up bullshit. I mean, look, this is reality. In most of the states, it's not like he lost by 200 votes where you really want to question, okay, what the hell happened? He lost by law. It was thousands and thousands of votes. And people always go back to Al Gore. And they go, oh, it's just like Al Gore. No, this is nothing like Al Gore and Bush. I was there. I voted. Okay. Shit, now you know how old I might be. So anyways, this is nothing like the Gore Bush presidential race, because what happened was Gore won the popular vote and was losing the electoral. Bush won the electoral. Gore initially came out. Sorry about that. Gore came out. Vice President Gore at the time came out and conceded that he lost. But once Florida was tallying their votes and Gore looked at it, was like, he's like, oh shit, this is less than 600. I want to recount. He repealed his concession, right? He repealed the fact that he conceded. He's like, no, I'm not going to concede anymore. We want to recount. And it's because it was literally like less than 600 votes was separating who would win Florida. And if Gore won Florida, he would then become president. So it was very different. And unfortunately, Gore did win Florida because when you studied the full recount, the numbers were showing that he would have won the Florida recount. But the state was a mess, and you know there were certain things that had favored President Bush back then, such as his brother being the governor of the state of Florida. So, anyways, but at the end of the day, when he lost, he lost. He didn't make a big deal about it. He conceded, and the country moved on. And I think that's the important thing. You know, some of these childish acts weren't good. I think it really tarnished the reputation of the White House. You know, I've had some interesting conversations with people, and some things have popped up where some people are like, man, like, I can't believe like fucking 74 million people voted for Trump. And I go, well, why is that so shocking to you? Because the flip side of the argument is those people are completely shocked that 80 million people voted for Biden. And my answer to both groups of people is neither one of you should be shocked. You're actually in the same, on the teeter-totter, you guys are all, and gals are all on the same bandwidth. You share that feeling of being shocked. So you have something in common there. But it really showed just how divided the country was in the sense of what was important to them. For people who voted for Biden and they can't really understand why people voted for Trump, these are some things to consider. I think a lot of people voted for Trump not because personally they liked him, but there are certain things they liked about him. I think they liked the economic progress the country was making. We had some of the highest GDP that we've seen in decades. His stance on China and certain trading partners was actually quite important. It was very vital. You know, China has really taken advantage of the WTO and has really just broken a lot of laws, primarily from the Obama era and on. You know, Obama really turned, unfortunately, a blind eye to what China was doing, and he allowed China to kind of just think they had a lot of big dick energy going on there. And if no one puts a stop to China, you're going to see a lot of instability in Asia, which has relatively had a lot of peace. If you know, since the end of World War II, it's been quite a peaceful region compared to other parts of the world. So there are certain things such as that they liked about him. Also, there are a lot of people who, you know, they don't like what Democrats are for right now. They don't, you know, if you're like a traditional liberal, you're kind of stuck in this world because when you look at liberals, they look like a bunch of just fucking pussy pansies who are just yelling and they're hyper emotional and over emotional, and they do not exemplify what it means to be an adult at all. And a lot of people are turned off by that. You know, there are a lot of Democrats who are warning, hey, we got to stop this defund the police bullshit. You know, it's hurting them in other areas. That's why a lot of people were voting for, you know, Trump in that case. there are a lot of things that the Democratic Party, for example, they just don't have common sense, and a lot of people are turned off by it. Like, if you live in California, I know a lot of parents who go, like, they go, wow, they've made raising a kid impossible. They're trying to tell our kids what bathroom not to piss in, when this whole idea of, for example, male and female has just been completely taken out of context for kids. They're like, this is bullshit. We're not going to vote and support an ideology which is not backed by science. And so you have a lot of feelings like that. You have a lot of people who don't associate with that, even though they might have traditionally been a Democrat or a liberal. And on the reverse side, right, for people who voted for Trump, they can't understand why people voted for Biden. Well, there are a lot of social issues that Trump kind of fumbled the ball on. I think a lot of people during some of the protests that were taken on 4 years ago, like in Charlottesville, I believe, the question everyone asks is, how hard is it for the guy to say that racism exists? They were looking for that type of leadership, and he failed. And we're not here to go into the debate whether the president is racist or not. We're not saying that. We're just saying for the Trump supporters, this is why a lot of people voted for Biden. There are certain things that they were looking for in terms of race that, at the time he unfortunately did not do. Other reasons why people voted for Biden that the Trump people may not be able to fully understand is that, they felt, he's too much of a bully. Also, I think the thing that a lot of Trump supporters got to know, I think the main reason that a lot of people voted for Biden was, it's not because they liked Biden, it's because they just purely hated Trump. And so they just wanted to vote for Biden. They voted for Biden knowing that he might not be a better president, but they voted for him because they hated Trump. So when they hated Trump that much, they were looking to vote for anybody else, whether it was Biden or even Kanye West in this case. But I think the important thing to consider is, like, look, in a real democracy, you have a winner, you have a loser, right? So the winning party gets to celebrate for the next 4 years. The losing party, not you as the voter, right, but the party, right, has 4 years to come up with a game plan to say, how can we win? How can we win the next presidency? And having said that, it's important that we, as a country, and I know I've said this before, and we've said this before, we as a country, we band together. Because in the democracy, and I think the thing that was, once again, so just disappointing to see this time around was, we saw this a lot. People were like, oh, you voted for Biden, fuck you, motherfucker. We hate you. Oh, you voted for Trump, fuck you, you're a racist, you're a piece of shit. Like, this shouldn't exist in democracy. If this continues, then China wins and communism prevails. That's just the bottom line. There was a time in this country where it didn't matter if someone was liberal or conservative or Democrat or Republican. You didn't let it get between you. You voted, that was it, and guess what? You might have been here, you might have been here, and a lot of the development that we make as a country is where this stuff overlaps. And your circle and their circle, they're going to overlap. That's how you make progress in this country. But when you have one-sided politics, which is what you see in California as a one-party state, that's where democracy gets shielded with communism, okay? You have a one-party state, you have dictators and emperors running cities and governors, the governor of the state. That's where the threat becomes. So as a people, don't beat up other people because they voted for somebody else. Respect it and see how we can move forward to make society better. Because it's very disappointing when you have, black friends coming up to you going, man, like some people come to go, oh, we know who the fuck you voted for, you piece of shit. Assuming they voted for Biden. I knew a lot of black people voted for Trump. So this vehemence has to stop. This British East India Tea Company mentality of we're going to divide and conquer must stop. No, remember, we are a nation. We are under one flag. So all this bullshit of different color flags, no. There's one flag. That's what we stand up for. That's what we represent, regardless of your race, regardless of your religion, regardless of your color. We're all here. That's what kind of America franchises itself upon, is that you can be Iranian, you can be Korean, you can be from Nigeria, you can be from Eritrea, you can be from any of the amazing countries from South America. We can come here, we can maintain our respective cultures and yet be American. And that's what that flag stands for. So enough of the hypocrisy. We are under one flag. We are one nation. We are one peoples with many different backgrounds. And let's respect that. And you know what the beauty is? If you don't like a politician, vote them the fuck out. If you don't like your party, vote for the other party to punish them, to make them realize that they need some common sense, to make them realize that while they're debating what bathroom we have to piss in, there are more important things at hand, such as social inequality, the failing infrastructure of the United States, the failing educational program in the United States, the fact that we suck at giving childbirth in this country, and we rank like 147th, I believe, in child mortality rates and mothers surviving childbirth. I mean, this is embarrassing. We have much more important things to focus on rather than, as my peers in Italy would say, which is what bathroom we got to go pee in. So let's focus on the important things. And if we don't like people, like I said, vote them the fuck out. And let's make sure we vote for people who care about us and respect our vote and respect the fact that when we want high-speed rail, they don't give us the middle finger. That when we vote for something fucking simple as daylight savings time, we don't have to keep changing our fucking clocks. You know, how hard is it to say, hey, you voted for daylight savings times, it got accepted, don't change your fucking clocks, you know? But the emperors of the Dark Empire have forgotten what it means to be in a democratic state. Now, moving on to Australia. About a couple weeks ago in Australia, there was this huge I don't know what to fucking call it, but batshit ape monkey poo response to a person getting COVID from a pizza delivery driver. And this province in Australia, which is a state, shut down its entire state. And guess what? The pizza company did not fucking exist. Now, how does this relate to everything we've been talking about? Well, I'm going to tell you how it relates. Because when the government and people fail to rely on the experts in life and they don't fact check things properly, that is the response you get, which is mass shit hysteria, where you shut down an entire province in your country, losing maybe hundreds of millions of dollars in economic activity, inciting panic and unnecessary fear over a fake company which did not exist, to prove a point that the governments in the Western world are just acting with their heads up a donkey's ass. And that's the problem we face right now. That's the problem we have, is that the experts are not allowed to speak because you have activists wanting to push their own agenda. You have conspiracy theorists pushing their own ideology. And it's very easy to fall into the rabbit hole of conspiracy theories. That's why people think the earth is fucking flat, okay? Which begs us to a bigger question. If our society is becoming dumber, then the companies that create this technology must be held accountable. And it's a tricky area because I'm an advocate of free speech. But at some point, there needs to be some type of accountability held for creating division and tribalism and the spreading of false information. Because when we can't listen to the experts and we can't listen to science and real math and facts, and we believe pseudo facts from the yoga instructor telling us how there is voter fraud and how the earth is flat, we are going to be in deep shit, people. So on this ending note, let's not be like Australia and just shut things down for the sake of it. Let's use science. Let's make sure we listen to the real experts and not pseudo experts, people who call themselves doctor when they have a PhD in fucking art and then they're trying to dictate public health policies for a city like in Los Angeles. No, we want the real people doing the real shit, okay? You're not going to have a linebacker fucking play point guard in the NBA. It's just not going to work, or vice versa, okay? We want the people who are trained in their respective fields and have the medical knowledge or any knowledge to lead us down the direct path, to lead us into the correct path. If you're an art major and you got a PhD, Wonderful. Teach us about Picasso and Native American art and whatnot. Do that. That is your job. But don't be something that you're not meant to be. Don't pretend to be something that you're not. So, on that note, we hope you enjoyed it. Have a wonderful day, everyone, and look forward to our next episode. Take care.